Hello, and welcome to a long overdue edition of Comic Book Action Theater here on RGC Multimedia. My name is Rick Crabb, your host. Sorry for the delay in episodes. Had a few things going on since the last one that I released. Pretty much change of jobs due to COVID. I had a death in the family, and I've had to move. And I've had a few other things going on, but mainly they're the three reasons for the delays. And I've been busy with another show on this YouTube channel. I know normally fans of sports and fans of comics and science fiction and other nerd type media, for lack of better terms, usually they don't share common interests, but if you happen to like the content of this show as well as baseball from around the world, you can join me and Eric Marenbach on this YouTube channel on Pro Baseball World Tour every week. Usually I air it every Wednesday. We review baseball around the world, not only Major League Baseball, but we also follow various leagues in Asia, South America, that kind of thing. So if you're into that, please check us out by all means and leave us comments, tell us what you think. Well, the only other thing I have to mention as far as a delay, I did actually record a couple of other episodes, but some of the content was flagged by YouTube as for copyright violations. Pretty much I tried to make it a family show. That's the only thing that this would be flagged for. But perhaps maybe down the road I might do a Patreon episode, and maybe I can put those episodes on for you to listen to, and they were a lot of fun, especially one ahead of the Justice League. But again, YouTube went crazy with the copyright restrictions for that episode. So, well, this episode I'm about to speak to you now involves some insect-related fun. We have a couple of old-time radio stories of the Blue Beetle. I will go into that later on into more detail. But we also have an interview about an upcoming comic called Arachna. I'm going to interview shortly the publisher and author of that comic. His name is AI, and we will go into detail about that. The comic is in the works. He is actually organizing an Indiegogo campaign for it. And during the interview, we will elaborate how you can be a part of that. So without further ado, here's our interview with AI, the publisher and creator of Arachna, right here on Comic Book Action Theater. Alright, folks, welcome back to Comic Book Action Theater, here on the RGC Multimedia YouTube channel. My name is Rick Crabb, and on the line with me, I am with the publisher and creator of the upcoming Arachna comic. Here to talk to us about that particular project, we have the publisher, goes by the name of AI. AI, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
Okay. Alright, AI, a few things I want to ask you about this. You're obviously launching an Indiegogo campaign for this particular character. Her name is Arachna. First of all, why don't you tell us a little bit about the comic itself, as far as the characters and the background, that kind of thing.
So I've been a big fan of comics. I grew up. When I came to this country, 9 years old, first thing I picked up was World's Finest, which is a DC comic, and kind of started love affair with comics since. In the 80s, I grew up reading, obviously X-Men with Byrne and Austin and Claremont, and then Teen Titans with Perez and Mark Wolfman. So a lot of my love was like from the 80s comics, and then eventually I discovered Alan Moore with Swamp Thing, and that like really, I feel like Alan Moore pretty much ruined comics for me, because it just wrote at such a different level that it kind of ruined what other people were writing at the time. So kind of grew out of it, came back in a little bit later with the Image guys, kind of kept going in and out of it. The problem, I still have a love of comics, but I just don't see fun and interesting stories that kind of have adventure or even perilous situations, which is something I really liked in the Batman TV show back in 1966 with Adam Lasso. The character really kind of is a love affair or a love letter to the things I've liked in the past, either in comics or movies. So, and I felt like Marvel really ruined Spider-Woman a few years back. She was one of my favorite characters back in the 70s, 80s. Bendis brought her back for like a reboot, which was interesting, but they just, I don't know, I just wasn't seeing the things I want to read from Marvel and DC. And, looking at Indiegogo and looking at crowdfunding and kind of like the entrepreneurial part of it, things always interested me. And I was like, let's try this. Let's try doing something that I would want to read and I would want to buy, and let's see what happens. And hopefully we can find people with the same, same interest. So that's pretty much where this Arachna character comes from.
Okay. Yeah, I think you centered on that too, which I find interesting about Marvel. I agree with you as far as their current comics. To me, it seems like they try to want to be more socially relevant and stay on top of those issues than they do as far as with their storytelling, which I find ironic because a lot of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is based on, what we enjoyed as the Silver Age, as you mentioned, with,
the 70s, 80s storylines, Thanos storyline, Ultron storyline, even the Winter Soldier was still, Blue Beetle's thing. So, I feel like it's become more, it's become boring. Where I think they're when you get political with a lot of this stuff, the SJW is kind of like they kind of tender to them, and I think that's tough when you try and tell good stories. Like I'll give you an example of like David Lynch, right? He's an interesting filmmaker. Mm-hmm. You may like him, you may not like him, whatever it is, but he's not doing check boxes where he's checking off like, okay, we need this type of character, check. We need to address this thing, check. He's creating art, and I think back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, people just wanted to write good comics, and I think we've lost that, especially nowadays with the big two. Like, I just feel like it's all like kind of, I don't know, you have your political lean and stuff. I always, like, my background is marketing, and I feel like you can't get political with this kind of stuff, because you're going to lose either way. You're going to cut off half your audience if you start, leaning left or right or whatever you're going to do. So I would say try to create good stories, try to create good characters, and, I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking at this point. I think comic sales are at an all-time low. But at the same time, like when you look at Indiegogo and Kickstarter campaigns, they've been pretty high in terms of sales, and I don't know what's going on with these big companies. Like, it's just disturbing to look at characters you really loved, and they're just like, they're not good. They're not written well. I didn't recognize a lot of these characters before, so I don't get it.
And I think a lot of it has to do with Marvel's ownership, and, DC's ownership, too, with AL Time Warner. I think it's just, these companies, they want to be corporate and safe, especially since they also own Disney characters, they own the Muppets. They're concentrating more on trying to be commercially viable and catering to families and the kids, which with superheroes and comics itself, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think they're going more the safe route, where the stories I think we've enjoyed, especially the late 60s, early 70s, you had with Marvel, it seemed like they took the superhero concepts in new dimensions, where with the Fantastic Four, you had more of a family dynamic. The villains were excellent for Marvel. I thought they had a lot of multi-layered, sympathetic characters for villains, such as like with Doctor Doom and the Mole Man. They weren't just like the Golden Age superheroes, where it's like, okay, this guy's a bad guy because he's fighting Superman in this issue. There was you saw the reasoning behind their schemes and what have you. So,
Yeah, I mean, one of the characters I really gravitated towards was Spider-Man, and Spider-Man was, like I was, it was before where Peter Parker became this ladies' man and the big models, whatever. But it's actually Spider-Man under Lee Ditko was a complete loser, like Peter Parker was. Mm-hmm. And then this Spider-Man was a completely. It's almost like if you're power to do whatever you want, and you're like me, shy student, and all of a sudden you got this thing. What will you do with it? And he becomes Spider-Man, and it kind of lets really his personality fly because he's got a mask on, nobody knows who it is. And he's got all these powers. So I really connected with that piece of it because I think when we came here, I was mostly alone because trying to learn a new language and stuff like that. You tended to be a loner, so that you kind of identified with those type of characters. I also don't agree with this thing they have now with this, a lot of diversity. Peter Parker was white. I'm Pakistan, and you're not thinking, okay, well, Peter Parker's white, so I can't be Spider-Man. You just you think about these things, and you go, it's a fantasy, right? So
right.
That part I disagree with all that. Just try to tell good stories and don't try to check boxes. In terms of diversity and these corporations, it's interesting to me where these corporations try to create diversity in characters and stuff, but I would urge you to look at their senior leadership, and it's a completely different story there. So it just seems like it's all a lot of bullshit, and they're just trying to appease whatever they need to appease to get quarterly profit to stay where they are or go higher. So it's a lot. I don't think a lot of this is belief. I think it's just kind of forced on there or whatever. Mm-hmm. So, but I don't know. Just getting back to stories and stuff, they're not fun, man. It's like they cost a lot. I don't know what kid can afford $4 or $5 for a comic, and then and then stories you're getting from them, it's not even worth reading because they're trying to take stories which were written in for 1 or 2 issues in the old days, and they're trying to maximize the 6 issues. They can make paperbacks out of them and stuff. So I hate to keep putting down Marvel and DC and stuff, but I just don't see anything that I would pick up these days from those companies. They're just very bland.
Mm-hmm. Well, we may be seeing something that we would want to pick up. That is Arachna from our guest AI here on Comic Book Action Theater. Now, AI, as far as I know, you said this character you wanted to combine elements of Batman 66 and the Ditko Spider-Man, that sort of thing. How did you come up with this actual character, though? I mean, obviously you were inspired by those stories, but I mean, as far as...
So I mentioned Peter Parker, and what interested me about Peter Parker was that shy, unique person, right? Mm-hmm. Who, when put on a mask, becomes this kind of alpha personality. And I wanted to take it a step further. I wanted to say I've studied split personality, and I have a cousin who's a psychiatrist, and I asked him about a lot of this. It really interested me. What if Peter Parker, once he put on the mask, just doesn't remember, what he does is Spider-Man's a completely different personality, and then when he takes off the mask, he doesn't know what happened. It's if you think in terms of if you study split personality and serial killers and stuff like that, they don't once that personality takes over, the other personality doesn't really remember what happened or what's going on. It kind of turns itself off. So that was one thing. To have this, Jenny's a college student, and I don't get too much into the background because that's still kind of secret in terms of how she was created or what caused her creation.
Right.
But you have a kind of shy, awkward student, and then once she puts on the mask, it becomes this very kind of alpha female type thing, who is very sexual and is the complete opposite of Jenny. So that whole split personality thing interested me. from a character point of view. And then in terms of powers, you can people say, oh well, this is like Spider-Man or something. I want you to find me like a superhero that isn't taken from somewhere else. Like when you look at the boys and you look at Homelander, like who does that remind you of? It's Superman, pretty much. Or
right.
Who does Black Noir remind you of? Is Batman? Same thing with Wonder Woman and all that stuff. So it was to take things that interested me. Like I said, Spider-Man was always one of my favorite characters. Spider-Woman was I liked her as well, but you kind of take that and you kind of mix it all up, and you want to see what you can bring to it. So I think this personality piece I find very interesting. The fact that we have a psychiatrist on board with this thing, where we can run like ideas off them. That's also interesting. And then the costume itself was. So I don't know if you remember the Milo Manara Spider-Woman cover that caused quite a controversy back. I don't know how long it's been now, but people just kind of went crazy over that, and how dare you sexualize like female characters and all this stuff. So I
remember that, yeah.
Sexy, hence the kind of Blue Beetle in there too. But the idea is the character is sexy, and she's kind of the opposite of kind of that meek and mild-mannered Jenny, so she's going to do that type of thing where she creates a costume like that. In the outfit, I do like something like a cat suit rather than like a leotard. Those are kind of just personal things that you like. And I want the design to be a little bit different than anything that's out there, so hopefully we have created a design that doesn't look like anything else. So that was a big part of it also.
Right.
So there's that, and then, the other thing I really like is when you think you got a handle on a character, or this is a villain that is going to act this way, and it completely blindsides you when you have the expectation of what a villain is or what a hero is, and they do something completely off the reservation where it kind of like really surprises you that go, I didn't know, I thought this person was just, bad guy A or whatever, bad guy B, and they're completely different. So those are the type of things I want to explore. I also put some in one of my inspirations, and the thing I liked about David Lynch and what he's more interested in is, like, you meet people and they kind of give you that thought of, here's what I am, but really deep down there's something else. And he wanted to always explore that other side of people, the secret side of people, where they kind of keep things hidden. And the same thing I want to do here when I explore characters is let's explore, like, okay, so Doc Diabolique, who is a bad guy in the book, when you see him in the first few pages, you're going to be like, oh, okay, well, this is like the bad guy. But there's also a couple of pages we have dedicated to him where you see a completely different side of him. And those are the kind of things I like to explore, because nobody's kind of like this, this way or that way. There's a lot of shades of gray that I want to kind of explore in these books.
Right. And it's interesting that you mentioned that you're a fan of Alan Moore. What you described this character kind of also reminds me of a character he worked on in England. On this side of the Atlantic, they call him Miracle Man, mainly because his original name was Marvel Man. It reminded me a little bit of like his early stories that he did, before Neil Gaiman took over for that. But I thought that was an interesting take on the character as well, too. So.
Well, Miracle Man was amazing. Like, when I read that back in, 82, 83, I think it was on that time when it came out. I think people lose. It's like watching a film now that was a classic back in the 30s or 40s, and you don't realize that you don't see, okay, what's so great about it, but you don't realize how that film changed, and influenced all these filmmakers that kind of added to that. So Miracle Man, when that first came out, it just kind of blew me away, because I had never read anything like that before in comics. That issue where he's fighting Kid Miracle Man the second time, and they destroy London. It's pretty wild, and that book is always, it's hard to get that book. I know Marvel censored that book in some areas. I'm trying to run down copies that were like the original printings or whatever, but it's tough to do. But Miracle Man was one of the things that really inspired me when I was a kid, just reading this thing. As well as the other one. So I don't think we can get close to Alan Moore and what he did, but I think some of the things that you get inspired by reading Alan Moore stuff, hopefully they'll have this in here.
Right. And he was masterful as far as taking superheroes and showing their faults as well as their redeeming values too. And I think,
I think Watchmen really kind of studied that. That was like that book on, studying the superhero if he was real or she was real. So that, obviously, what more can you say about the Watchmen? But I do like that other side of people. You don't want it to be normal, ho-hum, boring type of thing. So I feel like it's always more interesting when people are kind of doing weird things or whatever on, when the kind of camera's off them, and those are things I guess I want to explore more of in these books.
Right. Okay. And once again, we are speaking to AI, the publisher and creator of the Arachna comic, here on Comic Book Action Theater. One person I saw also on your website, you have an actress by the name of, and I'll be editing this AI, so if I mispronounce her name, please correct me by all means. Her name, Samantha, is it Samantha Auch? A-U-C-H?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, like awkward.
Okay.
A-U-C-H, yep.
Yeah, because I even saw she has a website that says thisisawkward.com, so I figured that's how to pronounce it, but I wasn't 100% sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see. So she has modeled for you as for your YouTube teasers and some of the promotional pictures, that sort of thing. Tell me how you and she met and how you started working together on this project.
So, like I had mentioned before, my background in marketing, so I want to kind of take what I know in marketing and kind of apply to this campaign. And one of the things is that video is very, very important in marketing, and smaller type videos are important. So what I wanted to do when I first came up with this concept and then doing the crowdfunding campaign is that we needed to have some videos produced, and we need to find somebody, that can play Arachna for these videos. So the first part was getting the costume commission, so that took some time. And then the second part was trying to find the right actress for this. So we went through a number of different actresses and auditions, and Samantha caught my eye because in the audition, you're switching between Jenny and Arachna. So you're talking about two different personalities. So there's things like vocally, how you do this, and then also your posture, the way you talk, the way you carry yourself. And she pretty much knocked it out of the park in terms of doing that. It's not easy to do, and especially just kind of reading off a script where you really don't have an idea of where this character's coming from, where this character's going. You're just reading 3 pages of the script with a little bit of background on what the character is. So I think she knocked that out of the park. So we were happy to get her aboard. When we shot this, it's one thing when you look at these costumes in 2D, and then once somebody puts them on, it becomes like an actual real life type thing. And she looked good in the costume as well. So she's you talked about levels and stuff for the Kickstarter. One thing that I want to do is if we break a certain level in the crowdfunding, that we're going to do a short film with Samantha. And one thing that she mentioned in the when we were shooting the first time was that she felt like getting somebody in that costume. So unfortunately, I didn't have anybody for her to hit. So I said, all right, well, if this thing is successful and make a short film, then there's going to be plenty of people to hit in those in that movie.
Okay. Well, I mean, actually, you and I can talk about this AI because I do some photography on the side. I think that's how you and I had met on Twitter. Won't go too far into that part per se because I'm trying to keep this kind of like a family, well, more of a general audience project. But I do know several models who cosplay that sort of thing, and perhaps, I don't know, maybe I can get one of those ladies to get in touch with you or Samantha and work something out. But
yeah. I mean, there's also the villainous in this comic is Kumo, who is is Nico, and she's actually she's a ninja that has kind of spider powers. So basically, what happens is they capture Arachna, Bach, and Nico, and they take her DNA and make a serum out of it. And when that's testing, Nico takes it and almost dies taking it, and then has these spider powers in addition to being trained as trained in martial arts and stuff. So that I don't know if you saw that costume and that character design, but that's really pretty cool looking design.
I did. I saw it on your Twitter page. It does look amazing. It sounds like an interesting character too. Plus, an interesting contrast where you have the same powers, but perhaps Nico may have an edge as far as her martial arts training. So that could add up to some good battles. I would mention.
She doesn't have the split personality. She's kind of more together. I think one thing we're going to be I'm not going to give too much away, but in their first meeting, Arachna gets her ass kicked by Kumo, and part of the reason is that Arachna's not all there with the. I think there's hesitancy between the Jenny persona and the Arachna persona, so that's something that needs to be addressed in the graphic novel. So, and I think Kumo Nico is also just a lot more. I think there's a lot more interesting things in terms of comedy coming out of her. So she just doesn't give a shit about stuff. So she's just more. There's a lot of interesting things that we put in with her character, and the characters become more and more interesting the more we've written her, fleshed her out.
Okay. All right. Once again, we're with AI, publisher of the Arachna comic here on Comic Book Action Theater. Now, as far as the format of this, will this be strictly a digital comic? Did you want to actually print one out, or you want to do a little of both, or hit several platforms? What were your intentions? Now, obviously, you mentioned you wanted to do the short film as far as a tier level, but I mean, what would?
So we're going to do a soft cover and a hard cover. We just stopped doing a PDF, but decided against it right now because part of having a PDF is that it gets pirated a lot. Also, so we want to kind of stay away from PDF at this point. We want to create a soft cover, hard cover, and then just a lot of different. I don't know how many. I think you've been in the site, so you've seen a lot of different covers that we've created. Mm-hmm. I'm also commissioning some artists to kind of create, separate prints and stuff for this character.
Right.
And so those are the kind of levels. There's one level that will have original artwork with it, meaning not the actual pencil. Nobody does the digital. Nobody does traditional drawing and inking anymore. Everything's done on a computer. But I've asked this artist that I'm working with now to create a original art on a 5.5 by 7.5 paper. That'll be kind of like one of the levels. There's going to be a short message from Samantha in her Arachna costume as a level also. So we're trying to think about some interesting levels and then make some things that are interesting. I mean, I'd like to get Samantha more involved in some of the offerings that we do have.
Okay. Yeah, I think from what I've seen so far, I think she definitely adds a lot to the project. Just out of curiosity, I saw some of the artwork you have on your website and on your Twitter from the variant covers. Did Samantha actually model for any of these poses, or it was just strictly the artist and inspiration, just using the character of what he or she wanted to do as far as the cover art?
It was strictly inspiration. So I would tell them that, like, look, I really like this one cover back in the 70s, and we want to do something kind of like a riff off of that. Or I really like this one cover, a Spider-Man cover. Let's see if we can do one that's kind of like based off of that into Arachna. Or, just a lot of the covers that I thought were interesting growing up. Those are the kind of things that I want to kind of reproduce for this. Some of them have bondage elements in them. A lot of the 70s comics had that bondage element in it. The Marston Wonder Woman had that in it as well. So it's part of, like, female superheroes and stuff. I want to kind of address that piece of it. Others were kind of just like, okay, they're kind of more like Spider-Man type covers. So it's a little bit of a lot of different influences that I want to kind of carry through to the campaign. Hopefully, you see that, like, it's really, like, my love for comics is, you can kind of see what time period, like, my love for comics is.
Right.
Which is, like, 60s, 70s, and 80s, that type of thing.
Yeah, especially who you listed as your influences. Yeah, definitely, no doubt. Now, let me ask you this. I saw that you have the story set in New York, which Marvel obviously did because a lot of their staff and writers and artists were based there, and what was interesting, they were able to actually use real locations as opposed to DC made up cities such as Metropolis, Gotham City, Central City, that kind of thing. Now, was it because of pretty much where you live? I understand you're in New Jersey. I'm guessing you're, like, not too far from New York City, or...
Well, yeah, it's interesting. Marty, who's a writer, he lives in Finland. So what he's been doing is he's been researching out the city online. So, for instance, like, Jenny's going to Parsons for school, so he downloaded everything he could on Parsons, and even to I'm at art school. I'm at the School of Visual Art, and he said that Jenny's making, she's a fashion designer, and she's going to make, she does these designs for the cheerleading team at Parsons, and I go, let's an art school, can I have a football team?
Oh, nice.
And he goes, no, go look it up online, they have a football team. And I was like, whoa, okay. So he's been really researching out all these, all these areas in the city. Part of it, obviously, is like when you draw, you want to do your own thing. The artist is from another country as well. So you kind of just, part of it, you're just going to, I think with the landmarks, you can take some of that stuff, but mostly it's just going to be made up with a lot of these things.
Okay. Once again, we are with AI, the publisher of the Arachna comic here on Comic Book Action Theater. AI, before we wrap things up, why don't you tell folks how they can find out more about your project, as the tier levels, when we expect to see some things. I saw you have several things, such as not only a YouTube channel, you also have an email list to find out more information. Let our viewers know how we can find out more about Arachna.
Yeah, I think the best thing to do is to go to the website and sign up for the email list, and you can also follow us on YouTube. On the website, it has all the links to YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. All these platforms have audiences that have different tastes and, different backgrounds. So, the way you post on Facebook is different than the way you post on Twitter is different from what you do on YouTube and that type of stuff. But I think if you sign up for the email list, you can also have access to the Arachna secret file, which is a password protected page. That's where we'll throw in a lot of things that you won't see anywhere else. I think I might put up some artist pages as well that they've done. Okay. So that's probably I think signing up for the list at arachnacomic.com is probably the best way learning more about this.
Okay, very good. All right, well, AI, listen, I appreciate you taking time for this video. I'm looking forward to this project. I had signed on the email list shortly before you had called, so I will definitely keep our viewers up to date on this, and, I'll...
Let me ask you something. Like, what interested you to the character in terms of this overall? Like, what do you think was interesting about whether the artwork, whether the character design, story, whatever?
Several things. The artwork, obviously. I guess we'll call it the peril aspect of it, too. I like you, I'm a fan of the Jessica Drew Spider-Woman. I also like Batgirl. And I think a lot of that I've influenced from the 66 Batman TV series, partially with Yvonne Craig and situations she was in. And also, I mean...
I don't talk much about that piece, but yeah, that's a big piece of it also, this book.
And I also, like after speaking to you in this interview about I read a little bit about the split personality aspect of it, but the fact that she really is two different people. Jenny doesn't remember what she does as Arachna. I thought that's interesting. Again, it reminded me of the Marvel Man from Alan Moore, and I thought that was an interesting take, where they took the Billy Batson Shazam dynamic and took that to a further step, and I like what you're doing with that. And it kind of reminds me a lot of Peter Parker, almost of the Tobey Maguire in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, especially where you have if I'm not mistaken, one of her powers is she has natural webs as opposed to, artificial web shooters, that kind of thing, correct?
Yeah, they come out of under her fingernails, and like one fingernail is obviously less stronger than if it's coming out of all fingernails, and how she if she was kind of hanging, she would need all five, or if she just wants to trick somebody, it's kind of like that kind of thing. Marty came up with the writer of the book, and I think it's pretty interesting. And how he uses that in the final fight between Kumura and Arachna is pretty interesting as well.
Interesting. Now, you say the final fight. Do you intend to make this like a limited series like Watchmen, or you just intend to keep creating other nemesises for her to fight after that, or?
I wanted to use this as like the first piece and hopefully a universe type stuff. So this is the first in which will be hopefully a number of books going forward. This one ends on a cliffhanger, which I won't get into what it is. But I mean, it's a self-contained story. But you remember, like when you read this books in the like the 70s or 80s. That last page would be like, oh man, I can't wait for the next one, or like I can't do it ended on a cliffhanger, which was very interesting. Like maybe a guy in the shadows or something like that talking, and you go, damn, I wonder what this is. So that part of it is important. But I also want to create a universe type thing where I want to do this one thing which is kind of like based off of Batman and Robin, but it's kind of like a married couple who I don't know if it's like a family, but it's like a family couple who only get excited when they're in costume. With, like that type of thing. But I want to add humor to it. I want to add, again, that kind of exploration of why they would get excited or whatever that kind of stuff is. So that kind of stuff is important to me. And then maybe down the road we could do like a kind of Fantastic Four type thing also. But basically, I think all this is born out of like the fact that I'm not really seeing anything in mainstream that interests me, or maybe I just do old for it, who knows. But no, actually, I shouldn't say that, because I think a lot of I think if you look at the comic book audience, they're in their 40s, 50s, whatever. So it's not like I don't see anything that I find particularly interesting, and then I think if you don't see stuff you like, you try to create it yourself, and hopefully there's a audience that shares the same in terms of they want to see and read the same type of stuff.
Right, and as I mentioned before, I mean, you have a disconnect. You have Marvel using the old stories we enjoyed, and Marvel Comics trying to use new stories with the social justice warriors, pretty much. I mean, the movies you don't have Ironheart or Mary Williams. You have Tony Stark and Iron Man. You know.
Yeah, because that's where Marvel made their money on. That those are the characters that are and always will be the most popular. I don't think any of these characters are going to be around. I mean, one travesty was like this snowflake and space face, and I'm just thinking, when I was a kid reading, and then I got attracted to Hulk, I got attracted to Spider-Man, I got attracted to these like characters that's like things you can't. It was just like you just wanted to be. You got Superman, you want to fly. You got X-ray vision, you got Batman, and now they're pushing snowflake and safe space, and it's just like. I don't know who the audience is for this. I know the SJWs complain on Twitter and stuff, but I don't think they're the ones buying this stuff. So, I don't know who this is for. Like, it's just like, I can't even see a kid picking this up. I got kids and they don't read comics and stuff, and they don't go, they'll play video games and stuff like that, but they don't go near comics because it's not interesting. It's boring, man.
Right.
Who wants to read that? Like, it's, I don't know, I don't know how old you are, but like, Wolverine was an interesting character to me, and he was like Psycho back in the Byrne Claremont days. He would have the berserker rage where he'd go crazy and stuff. I don't think you'd see that nowadays, but I think they'd be too worried about offending somebody, so, I think you're right. I think these corporations are too big, and they just want to kind of play everything safe, and they don't really want to take any chances. And it's a shame that they're kind of like looking at stuff from the 60s, 70s, and 80s to kind of bring the movies. So.
Yeah, and even in the eras that we're talking about, there were some political elements. The X-Men, pretty much, you had that.
That's like saying when people say Star Trek, I don't like my Star Trek political. It was always political.
Right.
But they did it in a way where I think it required more thought and more creativity in how you make these things. Like X-Men is a good example of political. Like it was based on the mutants were pretty much like the minority, right? And
mm-hmm.
And you talked about prejudices and stuff like that. So yes, that was done, but it was done, I think, more creatively and with more imagination, I think, than what it is now. Now it's just like it's so lazy and it's so boring that I don't know. I don't.
Right.
I just don't want to read it. Like I was looking at this meme today of. On Twitter, there was a Hellcat talking to Tony Stark, and she's talking about his male privilege or some white male privilege, and I'm like, it's not that like I don't want to be like reading this shit like
right.
It's boring, man. Like
especially when they take a character that you love and then they take it into a direction that you really, it's like, why did you do that? Really,
yeah. Like, what's the point of it? Like, I just don't. I don't get it, man. Like when I was reading Miracle Man, and I wasn't saying like, okay, well, this guy's white and his wife is white, and Kid Malcolm. I don't give a shit about that stuff. I just want to read a good story. Like, and again, I'll tell you, I'm from Pakistan, and I didn't read things where you're put in like, why is this guy Pakistani or something like that. I don't give a shit. I just read a good story and that's it. Like, Swamp Thing, same thing. Like, when I read that first issue where he finds out that he's actually a client and not Alec Holland, like, damn, man, that's still, like, I still think about, like, and it's so long ago, but those are the things that stick with you, and, I think they just don't have the talent right now, and I think I think it's just lazy. But, we'll see. I look at some of these Indiegogo campaigns that they're doing, pretty well, and I think there is an audience that wants to read about different stuff than the crap that's out there right now. I just think you, as an artist or as a creative, you need to explore things that are interesting to you and not go by check boxes that, like, okay, I need to check this box and this box and that box.
Right.
As an artist individual, whatever interests you, you should explore that piece of it, and then that will make things interesting. Because this thing is not interesting. A lot of what they're doing is not really interesting.
Right. And it sounds like you're.
Yeah.
I didn't hear your last part. I'm sorry.
It feels forced. It doesn't feel like it's natural. I feel like that they're forcing these agendas and these whatever on you. So you feel like they're talking down to you. I think that's also an important piece, because I think that's why people get so upset over this crap. It's like, you know, like, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I just find it obnoxious, like some of these people. And the other thing, I think it's like Twitter and stuff, that everything sounds so political nowadays that, like, you know, there's people who turn down work because this guy is Republican or this guy is Democrat, whatever. Like, it makes no sense. It's like, just tell good stories, man. Like, don't worry about the politics side of it. You know, like, it's a weird time in the U.S.
That I agree, and I had a guest on another episode of this show, a gentleman named Rick Offenberger, who worked for DC's licensing agreement that they had with Archie Comics with Archie superheroes called Impact Comics, and he did a whole book called the MLJ Companion, which delved into going way back into the golden age of the MLJ, now Archie Comics superheroes, before Archie and the gang, that character and his related characters even became popular. I mean, he did stories about the Shield and the Fly and Black Hood and various other characters, and he put together a really great composition about it. And he said a lot of it was the same thing. He just wanted to read good stories, and you know, he even posted like some of the public domain issues of some of those characters and stuff, just because he liked the artwork, he liked the stories, and he even said, like, when they tried to do like a superhero team book in the 60s called The Crusaders, they tried to mimic the art style of Kirby and Marvel, but they wrote it in the tone of the Batman TV series, and he felt with that particular series it was not a good mix. But it is a formula I think that can work. It sounds like that's kind of like the direction that you want to go with, and I think you're spot on with this. So I have really good feelings about this. I'm looking forward to reading this and you know, participating in the campaign for you. So.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it's good meeting people like you also, because it shows you that there's a lot of people that kind of are on the same wavelength as you. So it's not like just me thinking about this, or it's not just me, like, getting frustrated about the stuff that's being produced right now. And, yeah, it's good to hear, and, you know, like, talk to you about these kinds of things.
Likewise, I appreciate you joining the show. Once again, folks, if you want to find out more about the Arachna comic, go to arachnacomic.com. Get on their email list. You'll get exclusive content from that as well, and find out how you can help get the comic to your stores and on computers and wherever else. Okay, AI, thank you so much for joining us, and hope to talk to you soon. And folks, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. You're listening to Comic Book Action Theater here on RTC Multimedia. We'll be right back. You just heard our interview with AI from the Arachna comic on Comic Book Action Theater. Once again, go to his website to be a part of the comic and to join his email list for further details about his production. As promised, also, we have two stories. Actually, it is a two-part story of the Blue Beetle from his radio series back in the 40s, if I'm not mistaken. Here's the story behind that. The Blue Beetle was originally created by a comic book company called Fox. The owner was notorious for a lot of shady dealings outside of the comic book world. There's been allegedly he had been extorting other companies and that he would lend money to, and if they weren't able to pay up, he would acquire their properties and their companies and that kind of thing. Well, it got to the point where he got into financial trouble himself, and he actually used the Blue Beetle to license to other companies for collateral, for loans and that kind of thing. And eventually, the character was purchased by Charlton Comics and ran in the 60s with a legendary run by Steve Ditko. And then in, if I'm not mistaken, the late 80s, because it was just before Crisis of Infinite Earth, the Blue Beetle and several other superheroes from Charlton Comics were purchased by DC, which is where the character resides now. Also, the character itself has had different identity changes. The first Blue Beetle is the one you're about to hear. He's the one that's featured in the Fox and at the very beginning of the Charlton run. Eventually, that Blue Beetle was killed off, and his friend Ted Kord became the second Blue Beetle, the one that a lot of people know from the Justice League series of the 90s, the one with all the gadgets and that kind of thing. And in turn, I think he was killed off in one of the big mega event crossovers. I think maybe it was in 52, I'm not sure. But anyway, another individual assumed the Blue Beetle identity. It was a young boy. His name escapes me at the moment, but feel free to remind me of who it is in the comments. I may do that myself. But without further ado, here is our two-part story of the Blue Beetle, right here on Comic Book Action Theater.
The Blue Beetle. Sweeping down upon the underworld to smash gangland comes the friend of the unfortunate, enemy of criminals.
A mysterious, all-powerful character, a problem to the police.
But a crusader for law. In reality, Dan Garrett, a rookie patrolman, loved by everyone but suspected by none of being the Blue Beetle. As the Blue Beetle, he hides behind a strange mask and a suit of impenetrable blue chain armor, flexible as silk but stronger than steel.
As our story opens, our hero, Dan Garrett, is visiting his friend and secret advisor, Dr. Franz, who operates a little apothecary shop in one of the great city's side streets. He is restlessly pacing the floor in Dr. Franz's living room.
Look, Doc, why does there have to be so much red tape in police work?
Well, Danny, every organization has to have rules and regulations. That makes for efficiency.
Yes, but the criminals and the crooks we're set to catch aren't bound up in rules and regulations. You know, I like police work, but I also crave action.
You seem to get plenty of it as the Blue Beetle. I worry about you, Tate. These crooks and gangsters are vicious, cold-blooded killers. They'd have no mercy on you if they caught you.
I can take care of myself. Besides, that suit of blue chain armor you made me and that mask are a great protection.
I hope they never catch you without it, or ever discover who the Blue Beetle really is. I'm afraid it would mean the end of Patrolman Dan Garrett.
Well, after all, Doc, you're the only one who knows. Even Manigan is always saying what he'd do if he caught the Blue Beetle.
He's the officer on the beat next to yours, isn't he?
Yes, he was my father's pal.
I see.
He got me on the police force after my father was killed by a gangster bullet.
And doesn't he suspect at all?
No, he doesn't. He's a good cop, but he's not very heavy above the ears.
What's that newsboy crying?
Something about a movie star committing suicide. Wait, I'll go get a paper. Boy, here you are, boy. Give me one of those extras.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hey, look at this, Doc. Sandra Beaumont, the movie actress, committed suicide last night. The paper said she left a note on her dressing table which said, "Dope has become my master. No longer can I live without it. This is the end. Let my fate be a warning to all." What do you think of that, Doc?
I think it's tragic, Danny.
So do I. I'm going to do something about that dope racket right now.
Well, what are you going to do?
I'm going to ask the commissioner to put me on special assignment to try and uncover the leaders of that dope ring in this city.
You'd better be careful, Dan. They'll stop at nothing.
Well, if I can't uncover them as Patrolman Dan Garrett, I'll get them as the Blue Beetle.
As our next scene opens, Patrolman Dan Garrett, Mike Manigan, and Charlie Stahl, ace reporter of the York City Sun, are standing on the corner watching a hotel suspected of being the dope ring headquarters.
That's the place, all right. Somebody tipped off my paper. Why don't we go in and raid the place?
What, just the two of us?
Sure.
Don't be silly. We've got no evidence. The commissioner wants evidence. That's our job. To watch everybody that goes in and comes out of that place.
Me? I like action.
So do I. Hey, look.
Where?
That shabbily dressed man there. He just came out of that side entrance and gave a cigarette to that kid standing there.
So what?
Looks like the kid gave him some money for it.
He's a dope peddler. He's selling dope cigarettes, marijuana.
Marijuana? Boy, here's where I make a pinch.
Hey, you there, I want to talk to you. Come and get me, Copper.
Oh, yeah? You gotta travel fast to get away from me, brother.
Go get him, Danny. I'll signal Clancy on the next beat. He'll head him off at the intersection. Look, Danny's diving for him. He's got him. Boy, that was a flying tackle. Sure what? Hey, look. That car there. There's a machine gun. Look out, Danny! I'm going to take a shot with my revolver as they pass. Yeah. Look down behind those ash cans, Johnny. I'm already got. Missed them, but got it. Did you get the license number of that car as she passed? Yep. CB83725. It's probably a stolen car. Hey, what about Dan and the dope peddler? Those murderers get him? Looks like it. They're both stretched out in the street. You phone for the ambulance while I have a look. Okay. I'll phone my paper at the same time. Boy, what a story. Come on now. Come on here. Break it up. Break it up, Dan. Give him there. Hey, let's have a look at him. Oh, they sure got this guy. He looks like a sieve. Sure, and he'll never sell no more dope cigarettes to kids. He's dead.
Yeah, he's dead.
Look at the blood, will you? Yeah, look at it.
This guy here looks like he's dead, too.
Danny, it's Manigan. How are you doing, Danny?
What happened? Where's the dope peddler?
He's dead. You tackled him, and some trigger men in a car machine gunned you both.
Oh, I remember now. I saw the car coming.
Are you bad hurt?
I don't know. I can't feel much. I'm numb all over.
Well, here's the ambulance. You'll get a swell ride to the hospital, Danny, and maybe a citation from the commissioner for bravery in action. What's the verdict, Doctor? Will Patrolman Dan Garrett live?
Well, it's very doubtful, Commissioner. An operation is necessary to remove the bullet, but he's so weak from loss of blood that
that's tough. He's one of my best men. Due for promotion soon. Message for you, Doctor.
Oh, thank you. Come on, Commissioner.
Yes, sir.
This should be interesting to you, Commissioner. Read it.
Yeah, let me see.
If my blood is the right type, I would like to volunteer as a blood donor for the brave Officer Garrett. Why, this is signed by my daughter.
Precisely.
She's convalescing here from her accident.
Well, she's almost recovered, Commissioner.
Yes, but, Doctor, is she strong enough?
I think so.
Then by all means, let her do it. I'm fond as well as proud of Dan Garrett. He's a fine boy, like his dad before him. It'll also make my daughter very happy. I have a sneaking suspicion she likes young Garrett.
The commissioner daughter's Mary's blood proved to be the right type, and the transfusion was performed. Later, Danny was operated upon and a machine gun bullet removed from his abdomen. For days, he hovered between life and death. Then one night, when all was quiet, a strange man slipped by the nurse and stood beside Dan's bed.
Dan Garrett.
Who is it? Who's calling Dan Garrett?
It is I, Dr. Franz, your friend. I've got something for you.
Hello, Doc.
Now, listen, Danny. I want you to take this capsule. It's my secret 2X formula. It will bring you a speedy recovery.
Sure?
I'm positive. My formula will save your life, restore you to health in 24 hours. It will also give you greater vitality, keener eyesight, almost superhuman mentality, and it will give you abnormal strength. You'll be a tough hombre when you get out of here.
Give it to me. I've got to get out of here. There's important work to be done, and I've got to do it.
The next morning, to the surprise of everyone, Dan Garrett was completely recovered. From Mike Manigan and Mary Donnelly, the commissioner's daughter, who came to visit him, he learned that the commissioner had ordered extensive raids on all opium dens in the city. At one place, they told him, the police had been blown to bits by dynamite planted by the dope ring before they fled. Dan insisted on being released from the hospital and restored to duty. By mid-afternoon, he's back on his beat, fully recovered to health and strength by Dr. Franz's magic formula. That night, he visits the little apothecary shop of Dr. Franz.
Hello, Doc.
Hello, Danny. Well, my 2X formula worked, didn't it?
It sure did. Hey, have a look at this.
A bullet, huh?
Yeah, that came out of me.
Well, let's have a look at it under the microscope. Wait till I close up shop. Pull down the shades, will you, while I lock the door?
All right.
There. Now we'll just give this bullet the once-over under the microscope. Very interesting. Very interesting indeed.
What is it, Doc? Have you got something?
I think so. This bullet was fired from a shell.
A shell? What's that?
Why, that's what the soldiers in the last World War called a certain type of French machine gun, because they couldn't pronounce the real name.
Boy, that ought to be easy to trace. There can't be many of those in this town. Got any ideas?
Well, there's a French novelist by the name of Philip Braden who collects interesting firearms as a hobby. He might know something about this gun.
Out into the night went Dan Garrett on the trail of the murder gun. But a changed Dan Garrett. No longer is he in the blue uniform of the city's finest. He wears blue, but it's the blue chain armor of the Blue Beetle.
The Blue Beetle! Drop that gun, Raiden. I've got you covered. It's no use, Raiden. Your bullet can't pierce this chain armor I'm wearing. I'm sorry to be so rough, Raiden. I wanted that gun of yours. Now pick yourself up. That's better. I see you recognize my little calling card. The sound of my magic ray machine and a little beetle always signifies the presence of the Blue Beetle.
You frightened me, monsieur. I fired from nervousness. I had no desire to injure the Blue Beetle.
I see.
Oui, monsieur.
What is it you desire?
I understand you have an interesting collection of firearms.
You make the hobby of collecting unusual firearms, monsieur?
You own a Show automatic machine gun?
Would say?
You have the only one in the city, I believe.
Oh, perhaps, monsieur. I do not know.
I'd like to see it.
Certainly, monsieur. But this way.
And no funny business.
Monsieur, I am not in the mood for what you call these funny business.
Good.
Now, here you are, monsieur. This is the gun cabinet. The Show, she is... Monsieur, she is gone.
Gone?
Oui, monsieur. Always she is here in this place.
Come on, Raiden, your pretended surprise sound. Cut it out, Grumpy. Maybe you're on the level, then again, maybe you're not. I'll just dust this door for fingerprints and take a photograph. Now, you stand over there and don't make any false moves. Well, let me see. A little here. Some more here. Several fingerprints. Some of them yours, of course. Bring that floor lamp over here while I photograph it. Now, hold it steady. That's right. Now. That's got it.
Well, you find something?
Maybe yes and maybe no. Now, you get this straight, Raiden. You want to finish that novel or whatever you were typing when I came in. Just forget you ever saw the Blue Beetle.
Oh, I assure you, monsieur, I have no wish to
Good.
be...
If you're on the level, you're safe. If you're not, well, the next time you meet the Blue Beetle, it'll be just too bad.
Whom will the Blue Beetle call upon next? Whose fingerprints were on the doors of the gun case? Is Radon, the French novelist, a member of the dope ring? Let's look in on police headquarters. The time is close to midnight. Manigan is holding down the desk while the sergeant is out for a bite to eat.
Shouldn't I wish the sergeant would get back? I'd like me little trundle bed and some shut-eye. Oh.
Take it easy, Manigan. You won't get hurt. You always wanted to meet the Blue Beetle. Well, here he is. It's no use to struggle. The Blue Beetle is stronger than you are. I'll just stuff this handkerchief in your mouth and then tie you up. And I'll carry you into the room where you keep the fingerprint files. There you are. Now, over my shoulder you go, up to Daisy. Here we are. Now, just lie there like a good little boy. I want to examine these files. Let me see. Type 27B, 28B, 29, 30, 31B. Yes, that looks like it. Fingerprints of Joe Bugs McGotti, and here's his photograph. Yes, Mr. Bugs McGotti, those are your fingerprints, all right. You're the guy that stole that murder gun. Well, Mr. Bugs McGotti, you're going to get nipped by the Blue Beetle and nipped hard.
Reach for the ceiling, Mr. Blue Beetle.
Ah, the beautiful daughter of the police commissioner.
Don't move. I'll shoot if you do.
I have no intention of moving unless it's a step within the aura of such a charming person as yourself, Miss Douglas.
What are you doing here? And why have you gagged and tied up Officer Manigan there?
I'm here to obtain evidence against the opium gang your father is trying to round up. I tied up Officer Manigan there to prevent his interfering.
Why didn't you enlist his aid? After all, he's working on this case.
The Blue Beetle works alone.
But how do I know you're working for rather than against my father?
Well, if my charming captor will lower that toy revolver, which he's holding in an none too steady hand, the Blue Beetle will tell her something to gladden her father's heart.
Very well. But don't try any tricks.
Not a trick, my dear young lady. Now, listen. I promise you that before daylight, your father will have the opium gang under lock and key, together with enough evidence to convict them.
How do I know you'll keep your promise?
Let this seal my promise.
Oh,
Good night, my sweet. I'd like to linger after that kiss, but the Blue Beetle has a duty to perform.
take me with you, Blue Beetle. Let me stand by your side when you... He's gone. Maybe to die alone. No, I can't let him. I must help him. I must.
bloodhound on the trail once he gets the scent, the Blue Beetle sped on his mission. And like the bloodhound, he'll never let up till he runs his quarry to earth. But close on his heels goes the commissioner's daughter, determined to have a part in the roundup of the nefarious gang of dope peddlers. Little did she know that close behind, as she hurried down the darkened street, a car was slowly following her.
There she goes. That's the commissioner's girl.
Let's nab her now. Wait till she passes that street light. Now, out you go. Make it snappy and keep it quiet.
Okay, boss.
Excuse me, lady.
What? Who are you?
Grab her. Come on.
Oh, let me go.
I got her. Come on.
Okay, here's the car. I'll stick the gag in the mouth. There. Now open the door. We got it, boss.
All right, come on in. The commissioner will pay a big dough to get his darling daughter back alive.
Where is the Blue Beetle? Will the Blue Beetle be able to rescue the beautiful daughter of the police commissioner? Will he locate the hideout of the dope ring? Will he be able to collect enough evidence to convict them? Through the silent night, down by the waterfront, two powerful cars are speeding along. The first car is full of men, hard-looking men, desperate men, killers all. But who is this lone occupant of the second car? Ah, yes, it is the Blue Beetle.
That looks like the car that passed me the day I was machine gunned. I'll just follow her. It may lead me to the dope peddler's hangout. They suspect me. They've got a machine gun pointing out of the rear. There it goes. I better give them a ruffle with my synchronized machine gun before they shoot away my windshield. The super shatterproof glass is good, but I don't know how good. All right, you rats. How do you like this? I must have got that driver. Their car's zigzagging. Oh, now they're speeding up. Well, here we go again. They're slowing down. They're turning into that warehouse. That's my gang, all right. Just the spot I was headed for. Now, Mr. Bugs McGotty for the final showdown. Closing the iron doors of the warehouse. I'll soon blast them open those special bombs Dr. Franz made for me. All right, you mugs, don't close that door. I'll blow you all the kingdom come.
That's a beetle. What's he got in his hand?
That's a bomb. Go on, drill him.
Go ahead, Joe McGotty. Go ahead and shoot. I recognize you. Your bullets can't hurt the Blue Beetle. What did I tell you? Now it's my turn. Here goes your door. And I'm coming right in and mop up. Here I come. You better drop your guns or I'll let you have another bomb.
Yeah, this here's boss.
Okay, white-eyed Blue Beetle. Toss your little bomb and blow the police commissioner's daughter to kingdom come along with us.
They've got Mary Donnelly. Stop bluffing, McGotty. You can't fool me. She's not the commissioner's daughter. She's one of your mob, and she goes with you. I'll give you 3 seconds to drop your gun. 1, 2.
Okay, Blue Beetle. You win.
Now release the commissioner's daughter. And get those hands up.
He's double-crossed us.
That's more like it. Now, Miss Donnelly, here's some handcuffs. Slip them on those gangsters and bring me their guns.
All right.
That's better. Now, Miss Donnelly, you keep those men covered while I have a look around. That's a nice collection of dope you've got in these cans here. Here comes the law. Wait until the DA gets through with you. There'll be a few less criminals in this world.
Blue Beetle, you saved my life. These men were holding me for ransom. My father will reward you handsomely.
The Blue Beetle seeks no reward, Miss Donnelly. He seeks only justice. Justice for the underdog and safety for the citizens of this great city. Now, you take this gun and keep those mugs covered. The police will be here any minute. I have no desire to meet them.
But who are you? Please tell me.
I can only tell you this. I'm the man who kissed you twice in one night.
Oh.
My respects to your father, Miss Donnelly. Tell him the Blue Beetle will always be at his service and running down criminals of all kinds.
Away in his fast motor car sped the Blue Beetle, leaving the commissioner's daughter on guard over Bugs McGarty and his band of criminals. But close behind him speeds another car, a police car. Will the Blue Beetle be overtaken and unmasked? Ahead, a stoplight is changing from green to red. Will the Blue Beetle defy the traffic regulations to avoid discovery, or will he obey the rules of safe driving?
Mr. Blue Beetle himself. I've been following you for a mile. I thought I'd catch you at this stoplight. Come on, me bucko. I'll ride the running board back to the police station. And no funny business or I'll blow your brains out.
So it's you again, Officer Manigan. I'd love to take you for a ride.
No, none of that. It's me that's taking you for a ride. I saw you drive out of that warehouse back there, so you were in with those dope peddlers.
That's nice figuring, Officer Manigan.
It'll be Detective Manigan after I turn you in. Now get going, Mr. Blue Beetle.
It's too bad, Manigan. We have to take such a lonely, winding road along the waterfront.
Listen, Mr. Blue Beetle. The slightest move and you'll be Mr. Dead Beetle.
Oh, yeah? Listen, you're interfering with my work, Patrolman Manigan.
So there you go. Right off the running board into the river. Have a nice swim for yourself until you cool off. Good night, Detective Manigan.
And so the mysterious and thrilling character known as the Blue Beetle, after rounding up a gang of criminals, slips away to let the police take credit for cleaning up the dope racket. The next morning, Patrolman Dan Garrett drops in for a visit with Dr. Franz.
Well, Daddy, I see you let the police take all the credit again.
Sure. I can't let my buddies down.
According to newspaper reports, your friend Manigan got tossed into the river by some of the gangsters whom he had captured single-handed.
So that's his story.
That ain't the way I heard it.
I'll bet the Blue Beetle had something to do with it.
Well, you'd win your bet. You know, when I met him this morning, he had the sniffles. And he said he caught a cold. So I asked him if he'd been in swimming without his sweater.
And didn't he get wise to the swimming gag?
Yeah, after a minute. He wanted to know how I knew he'd been in the water. I told him I heard it from one of the boys.
Hey, Doc, you heard the latest news?
Why, no. What is it?
The authorities have got wind of a plot to sabotage that new Army pursuit plane that's being tested tomorrow out of the flying field.
Sabotage? That's my speed. Maybe I can get him the detail to the flying field.
So long, Doc. I gotta get over to headquarters.
Though some nation is envious of Uncle Sam's superiority in the manufacture of aircraft, what will happen at the airfield? Will the Blue Beetle be able to uncover this plot in time? Will he be able to run the criminals to earth? Those are all questions which will be answered in the next edition of the Blue Beetle. The Blue Beetle is a copyrighted Fox feature appearing in Mystery Men Comics magazine on sale at your newsstand. The Blue Beetle is on the air twice a week on this same station. Consult the broadcast schedule in your local newspapers. And don't forget to listen in.
You just heard our two-part story of the Blue Beetle here on Comic Book Action Theater. Thank you once again for viewing this episode. Please feel free to like this channel, like this show, subscribe, all the things that all other YouTubers ask you to do, I would kindly ask you to do as well. thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll have another episode a lot sooner. I've been speaking to a few people. Eventually I want to do a cosplay episode, because there are a few models I've been speaking to. I wanted to actually post some pictures to send to Rick Offenberger from the MLJ Companion, the guest that we spoke to on a previous episode. He's deeply involved with superheroes from the RC Comics group, and I wanted to do a cosplay based on them. I spoke to a few young ladies about doing that, and I hope to have that together for you, or part of that, if not all of that, for you in the next episode. Probably take some pictures of them, maybe do a short little film, and probably interview them as well. So, anyway, I'll be working on that for you, and once again, thank you so much. We'll talk to you very soon.